I feel like I was idolizing my sport. I feel like I was
Mm.
idolizing track. And when I broke my collarbone, it forced me to sit back and look at and realize what I was idolizing. I feel like God showed me that I was putting too much of my trust in things of the world and too much of my worth in my sport. And once I broke my collarbone, I realized, okay, I'm so much more than this. And I had to take a step back and realize that I was idolizing my sport.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Finish Line with Star, a place where athleticism meets inspiration, where athletes comes to share their untold stories, humble beginnings, challenges, and triumphs. Well, today we have an amazing guest in the studio, a former NCAA athlete who is currently a therapist for kids. He is here to share more on mental health, how he overcame challenges, and how he is the successful kid therapist that he is today. He is none other than Jaden Johnson. Hello. Hi, Jaden Johnson.
Hello,
How
hello.
are you?
I'm
How you
doing well.
doing?
How are you,
I'm
Star? I'm
doing
doing pretty
fine.
well.
How was your Sunday?
It was good. It was good. Church was really good, and it's been really restful. How about yourself?
Well, amazing, I must say. I mean, having you in the studio.
I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, so on Beyond the Finish Line, we have a tradition.
Hmm.
After my introduction of my guest, I like my guests to let us know who they are. I mean, you are addressed by who you say you are. So please, can we meet you?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Jaden Johnson. I am 23 years old. I recently just got into the professional world. I just graduated from Illinois State University with my Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. Um, at my time at ISU, I also ran track and field, which I've done for about 11, 12 years. I love music,
Mm.
I love my family, and I love Jesus. So that's pretty much who I am.
Amazing, amazing, nice. What you mentioned that you are a therapist, if I'm right?
Yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
so can you tell us more about that career? I mean, from being a former NCAA athlete to becoming a therapist.
Yeah, well, my official title is outreach counselor. So what I do is I see actually middle school kids and elementary age kids. I meet with them and have one-on-one counseling sessions with them and just work on helping them reach their goals that we develop with like treatment. So um, I'll basically just monitor them and help them reach their goals by teaching them things about their emotions and coping skills. And that's definitely different than the lens that I had as a student athlete. Um,
Um,
I say that because as a student athlete, I feel like there was a lot of attention on me. Like there was a spotlight on me. My
okay.
my image mattered a lot to other people. What I posted online mattered a lot. And now as a therapist, my life seems a little bit more reserved because I don't want everybody knowing everything about me as I did when I was in sports. So yeah, there's just a little bit of a difference in like the spotlight that I have on me now, in the specific work that I'm doing.
Wow, amazing. So
Thank you.
how was the NCAAs for you?
Mm,
You said ran track for about 11 years, or rather you ran track for about 11 years.
mm-hmm.
What was 11 years of your life like?
Wow.
What is the untold story
Yeah,
behind Jaden Jackson?
yeah. I love, I still love track. I'm not gonna say I loved it because I'm done. I still love track. It taught me so
Okay.
much, and I think it was very fitting that the event that I did in track was hurdles because I feel like I had to overcome a lot of hurdles, physical, mental, spiritual, to get to where I finally was at. I started at age 11, and when I first started running hurdles, I hated them. They were terrible. I fell in my first race. I was embarrassed, and I just didn't like it, but it taught me to keep going, and that's exactly what I did. So I kept growing. I learned that there were people on my team that were faster than me, and being the competitive little boy that I still am,
Um,
that was really difficult for me to handle, having some people on my team that are better than me because I always wanted to be the best. When I got done with high school and I competed in state, I was seeded first in the state. Unfortunately, in hurdles, people can hit you, and that's exactly what happened. So I didn't win, but I knew what I was capable of doing. So when I came to college athletics, I had no idea what to expect in the NCAA. I didn't know all the rules and the compliance that I'd have to follow, all these other things. But when I got here, again, I was like, well, I was the best in the state, so I'm going to be really good here too. And when I got to ISU, everybody was the best from where they came from. And that was hard for me to come to terms with because I didn't know how to compete if I wasn't the best. I didn't know how to be the best version of myself if I was lower than other people. But
mm,
it taught me to set the standard higher than what I had been setting it at before. I had to allow my teammates to push me and make me drive to be better because I saw that they were better than me. So I wanted to, it made me a harder worker. The NCAA, though, is not something that I was prepared for. Being a student athlete, just balancing both of those acts of being a full-time student, a full-time athlete, and still trying to make time for myself outside of both of those things was really difficult. And I got really homesick. I was really lonely. I felt very depressed when I got to school because I was away from my family for the first time, and I was just trying to be a light for my family. I grew up as a middle child. I know they say middle children have like this middle children syndrome where they just want attention and stuff. And I think that as a middle child, I really just wanted to be the glue for my family. I was a first generation college student who was going to get my bachelor's degree while also doing track at the same time. And I had no idea the adversities that I would face. Um, but they came my way nonetheless. Once I came in as a freshman, again, I said I was alone. I didn't really have many friends, but I eventually did make friends on the team. One of my closest friends, his name was actually Austin Rao, and he became one of my closest friends. Um, like I said, having people better than me was really difficult for me to do, but Austin helped me to realize that having a competitive spirit on your team is actually healthy, and it can encourage you to be the best version of yourself. So we were really close friends, really good friends. And I didn't know that he was struggling of his own. He had his own struggles of his own as well.
mm,
Um,
okay.
I just, there were just a lot of things that came with being a student athlete that I didn't know would happen until I actually started living my life as one day by day. Um, I don't know if I should go into like a whole bunch of the things. There's a lot,
Yes,
but
please. Yes, please.
okay.
Yes, please. Because it's like athletes, before there was something you said when you said getting into the NCAAs, and it sounded like there was something there, or there was some of that expectation you had before
Mhm,
you came into the NCAAs. And it's like getting into the NCAAs, it's a different world altogether.
mhm,
You have to work this here and work that here. So yes, I'm sure there are lots of persons out there who wants to get into the NCAAs who are actually not mentally prepared
mhm.
for what comes with the NCAAs.
Yeah.
So what was it for you?
Yeah, it was just the dedication that it took. I mean, as a high school student athlete, I had obligations and I had to go to practice after school and do my homework. But as a college athlete, it was different because now there's more of a spotlight on you. At least for me, that's what it felt like. So I had to get up for early morning lifts. I had to learn how to study for the very first time while juggling both of these things in college. I had to learn how to make friends and how to um, stay in compliance with certain things. So like there are a lot of
Mm,
regulations you have to be used to, and I wasn't quite used to those yet. But learning how to study and meet friends and just take care of myself. Like sometimes I even had a hard time knowing when to eat food, which was really hard for me because like our schedules are so packed as student athletes. It's like weights, class, you go to class smelling like you just practiced because you did. And now you got practice, you got class all day long. And then you have another practice session later. All of those times are jam packed, which I was not used to. I didn't know when to eat. I didn't know when to study. So figuring out like what my structure was and how to automate a system that worked for me took a lot longer than I would have liked it to. So it was really difficult to know when to go from class to practice to eating food was a big thing for me. I had to sit down over the weekends and just build my meal schedule and find ways to nourish myself. Because as an athlete, you're using fuel. You have to eat. You've got to consume nutrients that can help you to utilize your body in the best way possible. And I wasn't educated on that. I feel like I didn't really understand how important food was, and how important adequate nutrition, adequate sleep was. So I was just out here taking all of my habits from high school and using them in college. I was getting injured. I was not performing well. I did not hit any of the marks that I wanted to as an athlete. And that was really, really discouraging. It was really discouraging because you come here, you're like, okay, I'm an elite athlete now. I'm here as a Division I runner. I'm going to be the best of the best I can be. But for the first couple of years in track, that wasn't my reality. I just saw other people competing better than me. I saw other
Wow.
people doing better. I was injured, and there were just a lot of hardships that I had to face. But I would say overall, being in the NCAA, the biggest hardship was just learning discipline. Your image matters a lot. What you post on social media is oftentimes a direct reflection of your school, the people you're around, and that it's really a business. And
Hmm.
that last part was hard for me because I was just expecting everybody to treat me with like, and I was treated really well. I was treated with love and compassion and all those things. But a lot of times, I think people that are signing to be an NCAA athlete or coming in as a college athlete, they don't realize that it's a business. So yes, you're a human, you're a person, but at the end of the day, you are someone that is making another person money based on how good you do and how well you do the little things. And once I started to realize that people were looking at me as a source of their income, it kind of made me feel like, wow, people really don't care about me as a person. They just want my talents so that I can pay them by my talents. And that feels a little like harsh to say, but it's really a business. And I realized that even more after I graduated, after I left Illinois State and after I was done running track. A lot of those connections that I had were no longer connections because I wasn't providing for them anymore, is what I see it as. A lot of the people and certain entities, certain people that I spoke to while I was a student athlete ended up cutting ties with me after I graduated. And I'm not trying to get too into anything, but it's a business, and that's important to know. Like, as a student athlete, you are worth a lot to the people in the NCAA, to the administrators, to faculty. Like, you are a part of their business and you have a role that you have to play. And that was just a lot of weight for me to understand as a young athlete. But I think when I graduated, I realized my role and I did my best to assume it as best as I could.
So you talked about not being, feeling like you needed people around,
Mhm,
you felt homesick,
mhm,
you didn't feel accepted. Was there challenges you had to fight through that period? And even while you said you met a friend who was going through a phase,
mhm,
did you even realize that that was happening while you were trying to,
mhm,
put yourself together with what you were feeling at that point in time?
mhm. Yeah, I actually didn't. So I'm a very outgoing person. I'm very, I think, kind of bubbly, happy. I smile a lot. And oftentimes the people that you're around can be a representation of who you are as a person as well.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So my friend that I made, he also was very happy, very, very positive, very uplifting, Austin. And I had no idea that he was going through any kind of season of sadness or um, that he was even suffering from depression, which is what I found out later in life. I had no idea. He was always uplifting me. He was always encouraging me to be the best person in my sport and out of my sport. And he was just a great role model for me.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes when people are struggling, when people are sad, they don't present themselves as that way. I mean, if you think about it, if I didn't want someone to know that I was really upset or that I was struggling, I wouldn't be walking around all day like this. I'd be like, hey, how's your day? How are you doing? How's it going? What'd you do today? Tell me about your weekend. That's how I would be because I don't want that attention. And I think that's what Austin did. he was really good at putting on a facade and hiding the stressors that he was undergoing. Um, I had no previous knowledge that he had struggled with depression, which is what made it such a surprise a couple of years after we met, leading into my junior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
He he made a post on his Snapchat. I went on his Snapchat and I went to look at it, and it was a very concerning post. It didn't make me think that he was in a safe space. And I ended up finding out later that day that he had died by suicide. And I I really don't want to make this a grim podcast, but I think it's also important to note that there are signs and symptoms of someone that is struggling, and it's important to know a lot of those warning signs because I didn't, and his death ruined my next year. It took a lot on me. I mean, I came in already being away from my family, and then I developed a family here at school, and then one of those members died in a tragic way, which was it was very disheartening, and it showed me even more why I needed something bigger than myself to draw on for strength, because I didn't have the strength to keep going. I didn't have the strength to still wake up for morning lifts and go practice and compete and do my tests and study and eat and shower. I didn't have the strength. I went into a deep, dark place that I had never been in before. I was very upset with Austin for what he did, for how he died, and I was just confused. I mean, I was grieving, and I didn't understand how he could have felt that low until I started to feel low after he had gone away. And it was like I started to sympathize with him in my pain. I started to sympathize with the pain that he was going through because I was now in pain. And I think oftentimes it's easy to judge others, and it's easy to look on the outside appearance and tell someone that you know exactly what's going on in their lives. But if we don't take the time to get to know people and understand them, and the uniqueness of who they are, I don't think we can ever have an accurate representation of who that person truly is. But as I said, I went in a dark place after Austin passed away, and I later on I broke my collarbone in track, and that was just like that was the icing on the cake, because in track, or in any sport really, as an athlete, a lot of our identity comes from our sport. I mean, we're dedicating so much time, so much passion. We're investing into this sport, putting energy into it. So people are seeing us as athletes. Hey, you're that athlete from ISU, or hey, you're that athlete from. Notice they're not saying you're Jaden or you're a friend, you're a brother. They're saying you're that athlete. Every time someone was talking to me, I was being reinforced of my position as an athlete, and I was not being reminded of who I was as a whole. So I started to develop this skewed view of who I was, who my identity was, and I started to think that I was only an athlete. So after Austin passed away, and after I broke my collarbone in a race, the 400 hurdles, I broke my collarbone, so my sport was taken from me, and it was like, well, who the heck am I without my sport? What am I supposed to do without my sport? I mean, I don't have anything to bring to the table anymore. I came here as an NCAA athlete to perform and contribute to these people, and now I can't do that anymore because my collarbone is broken. So I just felt like nobody loved me anymore. I felt like my team didn't care about me anymore because I wasn't contributing to them anymore. But what I failed to realize is that I contributed so much more than what I could ever contribute in my athleticism. I contributed compassion and leadership and dedication and friendliness and all of these other things that made up more of my identity than just my sport. But eventually I got better, I healed, and I think oftentimes I'm taking a little turn for a second. Am I talking too much? Because I know I also ramble a little bit.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I was just gonna say, I know that oftentimes I feel like, okay, I don't even know how to say it. I feel like I was idolizing my sport. I feel like I was idolizing track. And when I broke my collarbone, it forced me to sit back and look at and realize what I was idolizing. I feel like God showed me that I was putting too much of my trust in things of the world and too much of my worth in my sport. And once I broke my collarbone, I realized, okay, I'm so much more than this. And I had to take a step back and realize that I was idolizing my sport. But I could keep going. I got a whole bunch of thoughts. So you please go. What do you got next?
That's really deep.
Mm,
So let me ask this question.
mm,
As an ex NCAA student athlete who is a therapist, right?
mm,
What did you do different after the NCAAs?
mm. Hmm. Really not a lot changed because the same qualities that got me into being an NCAA athlete are the same qualities that are still with me now as a therapist in my professional life. As an athlete, you got to be dedicated, you got to work hard, you got to practice, and those are all things that I still do now. I still wake up early. I still have to consume nutrients and eat the right food. A lot of things that I did as an NCAA athlete, I'm still doing now. I would say the biggest difference is I look at things more as a whole. I see myself as more well-rounded now. I think I had a very skewed view of who I was as an athlete because, again, people would just call me an athlete. So I was like, that's all I am. But after I graduated and got into my professional life, I started to see myself as more of a well-rounded person. I'm athletic. I'm a musician. I like to talk to people. Like I have all these other qualities and attributes that make me who I am. So I think being done with my sport helped me realize the other components that I was neglecting as an athlete that also make up who I am as a person.
So as someone who has been a student athlete, right?
Mhm,
What do you think that we athletes, or what areas do you think we don't get right? Because it's like, I'm sure before you got into the sports or before you came to the NCAAs, the idea was, like you mentioned, coming as one of the best from the States. It was like, okay, I'm coming in here, I'm going to be one of the top dogs,
mhm,
make it to nationals and all of that. Yet all of this didn't happen. Then, while all of this was going on, you felt homesick. You had identity crisis, if that's the
mhm,
right word to
mhm,
use. Then, finally, you found a friend, and on the long run, he had it for search, and you thought everything was right,
mhm,
and he died.
mhm,
Now, looking at all of these experiences,
mhm,
the NCAA athletes that you see today, what do you think can change, or what do you think athletes should always have at the top of their mind? I wouldn't use the back right now, at the top of their mind.
mhm,
I know you mentioned the NCAAs is more of a business
mhm,
than, yeah. So nobody really cares about you realistically.
mhm,
So it is, as long as you are able to do what they want you to do, they are going to love you.
mhm,
But at the moment there is nothing, or you have nothing to offer, then the love is over.
mhm.
So what would you advise, or what would you say that NCAA athletes should do to keep themselves off this? Because I'm sure the way you had your expectation is the way every athlete has his or her own expectations.
Mhm.
hmm So what do you think would help?
I think everything ultimately comes down to your mindset. Like no matter what, you've always got your mindset with you. I mean, that's something that'll go with you even after being an athlete. But I think it's important that to realize that even though you have a big platform as an NCAA athlete, um, you shouldn't allow it to define who you are as a person and who your successes, where your successes come from. And by that, I mean, we'll have defeats as athletes. We'll have failures. We'll have moments of mess ups and losses and slip ups and injuries. Um, but it's very important to live in the moment and reflect on the past and have a future forward thinking. I don't think we should ever live in the past because there's nothing we can do to change it. Focus on the things you can focus on the things you can control. A lot of times I think once we have an upset, say we have like a goal we want to hit at a competition and we don't do it. we come up short. We felt like we were going to hit this PR or this new personal goal, and we miss it. We don't know what went wrong. All the dots were in place, but it just didn't work out. I think it's important then to realize that you need to live in the moment. Don't neglect what you're feeling in that moment. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Use it as fuel and look back on the past. I mean, I think once I had an upset in track one time, I was looking like, wow, I did everything I did. I worked out well. I did good in practice. I go to sleep and things still didn't work out right. And I started to dwell in the past. What could I have done differently? Why didn't this work out this way? But I think it's very important to realize that the past is just there to remind you of the potential that the future holds for you, which is why it's so important to live in the moment. So when you're in the moment, it's like, okay, this didn't work out for me, but I can do something different moving forward. I know that this was not meant to be at this time, and that's upsetting, but I got to let that failure go, because if I hold on to it too long, it'll distract me and take energy away from other things that I could be doing and pursuing. So I would say just to any NCAA athlete who has hardships and goes through struggles and has this platform and all this attention, yes, it can be nice to have this attention, but also just remember to stay in the moment. I mean, it only lasts for a certain amount of time. It won't be permanent. Utilize it as much as possible, like live in the moment and take everything day by day, but don't dwell on the past and the upsets that you have, because they will come. Just learn from them and utilize it as fuel moving forward. Also, I would just say you're so much more than an athlete. Like, it's cool. You can do some things. You got some unique You've got some unique gifts and skills and talents that people acknowledge, but that's not all who you are. You're so much more than your sport. You're so much more than whatever you can provide for your schools or the NCAA. And I would just say get to know yourself more outside of your sport. Do things that are not related to your sport, because talking about it all the time can be draining. I think that a lot of times I would have like conversations outside of practice and I'd still be talking about track. Or like it'd be a weekend and I'd still be talking about the workouts I just did. You got to take a step back and let your brain breathe, let your body breathe, find who you are outside of your sport so that you can cherish your sport more once you're in it. That's what I would say.
So talking about finding who you are outside of your sport, when you had that injury,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, the sport isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of persons who probably wouldn't even know what to do next. So how was it from then? I mean, turning out to be a successful therapist as yourself and a mental health advocate. How did you build into, nobody is saying that injuries are like what we should fall back to, but how did you get this person that you are today?
Yeah. I think it kind of just talks more about the point that I just made about reflecting on the past and living in the present, because if I would have stayed in the past and doubted myself, like, hey, I should have taken an extra step here, I should have done this, and then I would have never fell, and then this could have happened, and this could have happened, I would have been in a hole. I would have been stuck in a hole of regret. The best thing that I did to get from where I was then to where I am now is I moved forward and I didn't look back. But again, I kind of hinted at it earlier, that didn't come from my own strength. I didn't know how to do it myself. I was very lost, and each day I had to choose to do better for myself, but I didn't always want better for myself. But thankfully, I serve an awesome God who knows my worth and reminds me of my value daily. And I really just clung on to him as an anchor. I mean, everybody has faith in something, whether they acknowledge it or not. I'm not saying everybody has faith in God. That's just what my faith is in Jesus Christ. And that worked for me. Some people have faith in their own abilities, but then when their own abilities fail them, then they don't know where to go. And if I would have had faith in my own abilities, in my own provision over my life, I would have been stuck in that hole that I was in. But I acknowledged that there was someone greater than myself who can remind me of my worth and provide me with the strength necessary to keep going. I mean, all these opportunities that came to me really should not have ever happened. They shouldn't have happened in the way that they did. But God made a way for me to have them in the way that I do now. I actually wasn't even supposed to graduate with my bachelor's in psychology. I did not pass a class a couple of times. A couple of times it was required to pass this class for psychology, and I failed it twice. And I was no longer supposed to be a psych major. So I was like, God, I'm not going to be able to help people anymore. I'm not going to be in psychology anymore because I don't know what else I'm going to do. I'm going to flunk out of this major because of this one class. And I think I tried to put a limit on God. I was like, all right, God, I don't know what to do. There's nothing else. They told me I can't pass this class. It's over. But what God did then in that moment is something that I never would have expected by my simple mind. He changed the requirement for the major to where that class that I kept failing and kept messing up on was no longer a requirement for me to get my degree in psychology, which meant that I was still on path to helping people and being a psychologist, a therapist. So basically, I just had to have faith that things would be all right, that things would work out. Instead of letting the downfalls, instead of letting the upsets just keep me down, I had to have faith that it would work out somehow. Even if I couldn't see what that looked like, I just had to trust. And that's exactly how I got to where I am now. The job that I have with my degree that I wasn't supposed to get, I still got it. And I'm still in it now because I was faithful. Yeah.
Jaden.
Oh, star.
Oh my.
Do
Okay.
people ever ask you questions ever? I feel like you're always interviewing the other people, but like, do people ever ask you how you got to like where you are now? Like, it's your show, and I feel like it's important because you're doing great things as well, and you're juggling so much at once. A podcast, you're a student athlete, like you have so many other things on your plate as well. So I think it's just cool to see how God brings people through. I mean, you're doing great.
Well, thank you.
Mm,
Thank you. Well, for myself, I would say it's purpose. It's purpose pretty
mm,
much, and grace
mm,
and time management.
mhm,
So, because one thing I believe for sure is when there is purpose and there is grace, there would definitely be a way,
mhm,
right? And when you talked about the injury you had the injury and what happened to your friend,
mhm,
it looks like that injury gave room for you to see further
mhm,
than what you thought. I mean, your identity as an athlete. You got to understand that you were way more than that because initially it was, I'm an athlete, I'm an athlete, I'm an athlete. But that injury gave room for you to see that I am more.
mhm,
And apparently, I would say in that light, God gave you the opportunity to be able to speak to people, assess people, I
mhm.
mean, feel purpose. So pretty much, I would say that's just what is going on with me right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Per
So there's more to being a student athlete, actually.
oh yeah, way more.
There's more to being an athlete.
Hmm. Way more. I think
Way more.
purpose is very important to understand. I think, especially in like my early 20s, I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? And I was so like bent on what am I supposed to do? I'm in track, I'm an athlete, but I'm also not like extremely successful to where I'm going to be a professional athlete. Like, what is my purpose? And I think it just all boiled down to being a light for other people in any space that I entered into and being able to encourage people in anything that I did. I mean, even when I was hurt and broken, I still showed up to practices and still cheered people on. Like, I felt like my purpose was less of you're an athlete and more of impacting other people with my attitude, with how I looked at life. Because we look at people as examples a lot of times. We're like, okay, people model behaviors for us. People show us how things are done oftentimes. So when we look at people as an example, we can learn from other people how they handle situations. So I like to think that like my teammates, my former teammates, and people around me learned from me based on how I handled things. And how you handle defeat will determine like how you're going to handle the next challenge or blessing or opportunity that is presented for you. So yeah.
Amazing. Jaden, what are you
I'm
drinking?
sorry. I've been trying to drink it off camera this whole time. It's this amazing smoothie I made.
What has life been like being a therapist?
Oh man, it has been more rewarding than I could have ever imagined it to be. I mean, children are so impressionable. They have more of a clean slate than we do as adults, and they're dependent on the people around them to teach them, give them wisdom, show them the ropes of life, and being a part of that process and helping them learn who they are, what their purpose is, what they like to do, has just been a blessing. Nothing short of a blessing. Um, it's been challenging because there is in therapy you've got to have boundaries. You've got to have professional boundaries. You've got to have a limit. And I I really enjoy my clients that I see. I really do. They're very amazing people. And I've had to learn to separate, okay, we're not friends. We're not friends, although I do care about you. I'm here to help you professionally. So I've always wanted to just be someone that's like, okay, yes, we're friends, we're cool. I want you to like me. But that's something I had to learn as a therapist. That's not the goal. The goal is strictly centered on the client and their help, their benefits. So being a therapist specifically for children is just it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding because a lot of things happen in our life as a kid. I mean, a lot of the way we think of our outlook on life comes from the first several years of our lives. The adults around us, the people we see, all those things shape us into who we eventually end up becoming. Sure, there are other aspects that will continue to shape us in our environment later, but like those first few years of life are very critical to who we become later on in life. And being able to work with kids that are still in very malleable parts of their lives is very, very rewarding. It's a blessing, and I look forward to doing it every day.
Jaden,
Star.
I do not know what to say right now, but
I mean, there's not. We're just having a conversation. We're just having a
yeah,
conversation.
we're, we're just, and I'm so inspired by everything you've said. I mean, it's like the NCAs coming in, you really don't know what to expect,
Yeah.
and you think you're prepared for it, and when you get there, it's either it's performance, it's the coach, it's the team. There's just always something. It's
Mhm.
either you're not enough or
Mhm.
something, or one injury comes into the
Mhm.
picture. Like you said, being able to pick yourself up, and you were able to find more in yourself than what you thought that this is what life is supposed to be for you,
Yeah.
and finding purpose and realizing that okay, I am more than just an athlete
Mhm.
is is that is more than inspiring, and I want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you a bunch.
Of
If that's
course.
the word.
Of course.
So, what word or what are the last words would you want to say to the viewers, to athletes, to your friends?
Mhm.
I mean, to people in the NCAAs.
Yeah. First of all, hello. Thank you so much for tuning into this amazing podcast by Star and Palma. She's
Oh
amazing.
my God.
And
Oh, you
um
mentioned my name.
I think that you all should uh again just take things day by day. I mean, the only thing that's really certain is uncertainty. I mean, we don't really know what's coming up next. We don't even know what's coming up in the next day. We have all these plans. But I think it's important to take things day by day to really just learn from your past, learn from your mistakes. One thing that I've personally struggled with a lot is imposter syndrome or feeling like I can't do something that I've already proven before that I was able to do. Look at the evidence of the things that you've done. Look at the evidence of your prior successes and use that to remind yourself of what your potential holds and what you're able to do later on. But just be gracious with yourself. As you continue to learn more about who you are as an individual, know that you are more than your sport, but you're amazing at that as well. And you have so many other attributes that are yet to be discovered, so many more people to meet for the first time, and so much more life to live. And I'm so grateful that y'all are here to listen to this amazing podcast today. I hope you heard something good today.
Yes, I hope you all learned something good today. I hope you have been inspired. Athleticism meets inspiration. So, my beautiful viewers, please do well to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. And yes, we come to the end of today's episode with Jaden Johnson. I still remain your host, Star Umpama. And until we meet again, be good, stay safe, and bye for now. Ciao.
Yeah.